We're checking out the Minuteman Missile National Historic Site right off Route 90, just west of Wall, and you can see the Badlands down that way. So all these sites are pretty close to each other. So let's see what there is to see here. So yeah, we went into this visitor center and they have some exhibits, and there was someone who is now a national park ranger, but he used to be one of the officers stationed at the missile site, and he was just winding up a talk explaining what it was like being down in the bunker and taking care of the missiles. And my wife really wanted to go on the tour where you have to take an elevator down to look at the underground bunker type situation, but I wasn't as interested. And besides, you have to make an appointment, schedule it months in advance. It's just a limited number of people can go in. But they have a lot of exhibits here at the visitor center, and later we visited a former missile site where they still have a missile in the site, so I'll show that to you later. So they have a lot of interesting exhibits, and in general I would say it's do like I did, which is take a lot of pictures as long as they allow you to inside a place like this where they have a lot of written text. And if you don't want to spend the time just standing there reading everything, you can take pictures of it and then read it later. And there's a lot of really interesting information about the Cold War and how all the missiles were stored out in South Dakota and other states. So this shows you what one of the missiles looks like that was buried in the ground out here in the middle of nowhere off of Route 90, and shows you the underground area. And this is where some people were visiting way back in the 60s when it was still an active site. I don't think they would have allowed that now. There's still active sites, but not in South Dakota anymore. And this was an interesting graph that shows the number of missiles from both sides and how they escalated, and then it's come back down. And this shows you why South Dakota and northern states are picked, because it's the closest flight path to Russia. If that was viewed as our main enemy, probably still is. And you can see Route 90 and that the Minuteman missile sites are right near Route 90 because it takes huge trucks to bring the missiles into the site. And here's one of them when they were first installing it back in the 60s. And it's like in a huge box, and then the missile is lowered down into the concrete silo that's in the ground. So that would have been an interesting thing to see, and I'm sure they closed the highway. So again, this is the number of missiles getting up to 60,000 on both sides, and really everybody was armed to the teeth. And the numbers are supposedly lower now, but I wonder if one or both sides has still got more missiles than they're really telling the other side. That's a whole other topic. So out here in the middle of the plains, you're learning about international intrigue and missiles and diplomacy. And this is a book that came to mind when I was touring the facility, Reagan at Reykjavik, where he and Mikhail Gorbachev negotiated a reduction in missiles. And it's a very good book, actually, and picked it up when we were in Reykjavik and added relevance to our trip there. So all of this is interesting to pursue. And then if you want to actually see some of the sites like there are in South Dakota, you can still go and take a look. So I'll show that to you next. Come to one of the Minuteman missile sites where there's still a missile, and we can look through a glass thing.
You can call and get a tour. 1.
Okay.
301.
That's the Badlands right over there.
Powered by OnSound. Welcome back to the tour. Enter your stop number now, or call us back when you're ready.
I don't have a stop number.
So this is where the hatch would go up and the missile would shoot out. That's probably for people right here. There it is. Wow. Deactivated.
Yeah, I know, but it's just so weird, you know?
It's so weird to have like high-tech stuff way out here in the middle of nowhere. I forget how tall they said they were, like 80 feet tall with the warhead on top. And then there would be like 20 all around. So I guess this thing would slide back, huh? When it was ready to be shot. So this just shows you what we couldn't see from up on the surface, but the missile's positioning within the chamber, poured concrete, and there's also some, maybe not for this missile, but for other missiles, there'd be the underground bunker area. This one was remote controlled, we read, and so were the group of missiles that were around this missile that we looked at. So the hatch would open and it would shoot out, and it was sort of a little bit suspended so that I guess when rocket fired, the flames would shoot out from the bottom and there'd be space for that as it shot out of the tube in the ground into the atmosphere. And so here's sort of a bird's eye view of where we were. And when there was no glass roof, there was a metal hatch. And it did slide back, as you can see. It would flip up, and I think the whole thing would slide back on little tracks. So it was all geared to do that, as missiles are probably today in other states. There's no more missiles, we're told, in South Dakota, but there are in western states, northern western states near the Canadian border. And there is a way to listen to a narrated tour on your phone. Lynn was trying it, so that helped a little bit in the explanation of things, but it's pretty self-explanatory. But it was another case of, we had these signs, we had to beware of rattlesnakes, so we didn't stick around the area that long. We saw what there was to see, and we moved on.